Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you. My name's Sharon Crane. I'm an alcoholic. And Duff didn't know she was doing that until 5 minutes ago, or I would have written her a little bit better one, but there. Thank you, sweetheart. I love you. And it's good to be with you and Jeff. And Ann drove over from Helena with her 3 girls, Susan and Shauna and Nicole. And I got off the plane after it's not fun flying anymore, but getting here is worth it. Getting to be with you is worth it. But anything was delayed, and everything was delayed, so I made it. And I made the connection because it was delayed. Everything was delayed. And I got off the plane, and I'm looking for, I don't know who I'm looking for. I talked to Colleen, but I don't know who I'm looking for. And there's 2 ladies standing there. It was her and Christy, but I didn't know. And I kind of saw them standing there, and I'm walking off the plane. Usually we say, well, what are you wearing? What color's your luggage? Something, right? Nothing. She didn't. I guess she just thought she'd remember me from 20-some years ago. But I get off the plane, I walk by these 2 ladies that look really elegant and, put together, but there was something about them. They looked like trouble, and they just did. They had that gleam in their eye, and one had a book in her arm, and I kind of looked to see if it looked like it was a 12 and 12 or something, but I couldn't tell. And anyway, I walked by them, and one of them turned around, and I said, Colleen? It was Christy, but it was just like, you guys, we can spot each other. It's usually the big gulps. They didn't even have one. Usually it's the big gulps. You get out, they always have the big gulps. The alcoholics with the big drinks. I'm never comfortable unless I have 3 or 4 drinks in front of me. Do you ever see how we are in a restaurant? I mean, really, there's water, there's Diet Coke, there's coffee, there's iced tea. We all have like 4 drinks going, and everybody, when they get up and leave the table, everyone looks back to make sure they've drained every glass on the table. We were in La Jolla, it was about 10 years ago, and we're all dressed up and looking good, and went down to a meeting, and these we're a round table, maybe 8 to 10 of us, and it's a very elegant restaurant. We decided to splurge a little, and so we went out before the meeting, and we're all, we're telling parts of our story and laughing with each other, and the one was telling about her, her jailhouse tattoo, and all of a sudden I kind of looked around the restaurant. The whole restaurant was quiet, and these elegant lady with lots of pearls on were leaning on their, on their wrists, trying to edge in closer to hear a little bit more, and because I don't know, we insist on enjoying life. Absolutely insist on enjoying life. And I thank you, Jim, for the invite very much. And Jim and Colleen are class of 75. They have more time than me. Yes, I know. I'd have to bring you coffee, and if you wanted it. And it was great to hear you, Tanya. Enjoyed you very much. And Larry, I love Larry. He makes me laugh, and I know him, and I know he shows up for his commitments. And I see him every Wednesday at the Pacific Group meeting. I'm in the kitchen doing the cookies. He's doing the coffee. You have to have a lot of time at that meeting to do cookies and coffee. Over 35 years to do the cookies. So I'm the cookie girl, and I so enjoyed Susan. I'm going to hear Mary on the road. Take her with me on the road, and Ken too, because my sweet son wanted me home tomorrow for Mother's Day. He said, well, you can go, he's been living with me, he's just turned 28, and he works in a business where he's on the road a lot. So he just moved back a little while ago, and so he and his fiancée-to-be, who's darling, are living with me right now, and they want to spoil me tomorrow. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to see how well I raised him. Let's see how well he spoils me. Kidding. But, you know, he runs me home tomorrow, which is a delight because he's never seen his mother drunk, and he's, you know, he's raised in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. He did the Colors and the Game Boys, and he went with me places and just had a really good time growing up in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think about, you know, when I went through a lot of tough stuff in the rooms and I didn't have a male influence in his life. The men in Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, taught him how to catch a baseball and some of the things that, you know, guys, you know, just hanging around with the guys, probably taught him to spit, you know. I didn't teach him to spit, but somebody did. You know, was that you, Larry? Or was that Frank? It was probably Frank. But, and one time I was at the yard. We go play volleyball if I'm in town on a Saturday. Haven't done it in a while, but for years and years and years, I went and played volleyball on a Saturday, sober, sober volleyball, yes. And my son was small, but he wanted to play volleyball. And so every once in a while, we'd let him kind of come on the court and play with us. And, you know, he tried hard, but he couldn't get the ball over the net. And he was a little guy. He couldn't get the ball over the net. He could kind of set us, which was, we made him feel better. But at that lunch that day, and this is Clancy's backyard, and we would have hot dogs and that kind of thing, and then the guys play volleyball. And the guys come back from softball, and we have the hot dogs, and then we sit down, and we have our lunch. And I looked over, and Clancy had put his hot dog down on, you know, his lunch down on the chair, and he was over by the volleyball net with my son, who was getting the ball now over the net. And Clancy had remembered he couldn't do it. He remembered from weeks before, and he started batting the ball back and forth across the net with my son. And my son had the biggest smile on his face. And you've been there for me the whole time that I've, you know, been a mother. You've been there for me the whole time. And, you know, later on in his life, he won a tri-state tournament of two-man volleyball. You know, so, you know, it was, you know, the time well spent, I guess. And this thing's really bothering me because it's kind of in my vision. You know, I keep thinking it's coming after me, so I'm going to move it. There we go. There, now it's much better. And, you know, my friend Bob is in the room, and I haven't seen him in a long time, and we have a lot of history. And so I have a lot of history with you here. Thank you for a beautiful day in Coeur d'Alene. Oh, my God, that boat ride was awesome, awesome. And I just, you know, it was just a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with you. Thank you. I work hard during the week. I'm committed. I'm responsible. I do what's necessary at my meetings, my commitments, answering the phone. You know, call times, things that we have to do because we're all busy people and we want to stay in touch with each other. And I just kind of, you know, I hit this part of your world and I just kind of exhaled. So I want to thank you for that because I will take a lot of openness and love home with me. I've made some room for it. And, you know, I had a little resentment against Idaho growing up because I grew up in Iowa. And which I didn't, that was really my first resentment when I realized, you know, I'm in Iowa. Everybody as I went out in my life would say, when I would say I'm from Iowa, they'd say, isn't that where they have potatoes? And it's like, no, we have pigs and corn, a little lower class than potatoes. We have pigs and corn. And I felt like pigs and corn my whole life growing up. Never enough, pigs and corn, that yellow state. Okay, we'll have potatoes if it makes me feel better, okay. But I was always from Wisconsin when I went to places and lived, other states, because you could, you know, they had cheese. It just seemed more dignified. And I was a little girl that, couple of things. I always waited for the mothership, and I would literally go out and sit in the soybean fields and wait for the mothership to come pick me up. I was looking for it. My father had to get into UFOs to try to have something to talk to me about when I was about 8, 9, 10. And I got obsessed with Gandhi for some reason. And, you know, my mother would just say, oh, Sharon, eat your pork, you know, and it was just, I don't know where all that came from, but I was a little bit different. I've got 3 other siblings, there's 4 of us. Nobody's alcoholic. I had one of those idyllic childhoods where I just had a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of concern. We could express our emotions as long as we didn't slam the door. We could, You know, my poor dad had 3 daughters right in a row, and my brother, who was last, never got in a bathroom ever, practically. We were always in there. And and my mother was just such a mom, just such a mom. And, you know, and my dad would kiss her after every meal, and he would say things like, "You're the best cook." Or she'd be washing dishes, and I'd see him go by and, you know, pat her on the fanny or something. There was love in my house. And there was, you know, we had religion, and we had, you know, family, and my dad's Czech. He was 7/8 Czech. So we had those Czechoslovakian weddings, you know, that go for all weekend. We had those Czechoslovakian funerals, which go for all weekend. You know, just a big heritage and a big community and a lot of sharing and a lot of love, and everybody shared their gardens. Everybody shared, you know, everything. You know, if they got a buck, you know, or something, they would share the deer meat, or somebody, you know, things like that. I mean, everybody shared. And it was a smaller town, but I knew that I wasn't supposed to be there. There was something inside of me that was on a search for something bigger. I wanted to be a nun, and then, you know, I got my little nun doll, and, you know, I was all ready to go, and my little rosary, and I knew God was about love, and then I found boys and alcohol. So I had to give that all up, you know, and I lied in confession from the beginning. In fact, my last big fight with a priest was in the confessional. And I had him so mad at me, he came out. We came out, and we're yelling at each other outside the confessional. And the poor people in line are standing against it was this church that kind of, it had an angle to it. It went like in a basement. It was a weird church in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. It was American Martyrs Church, Martyrs. You know, I was like, "Arr." And I got him mad about something about the Catholic Church and money. I got him really mad. So I could look at him and go, "See, you are a hypocrite. Look at you." I mean, I was that kind of person when I was 18 years old already. So I said, "Screw you and screw your God," and that was it. I wasn't going to go back anymore. And my poor family had to watch me change. I have promise. I play the piano. I play the accordion. I play the saxophone. Have a little musical ability. I took a lot of dance lessons. I could tap. I could do ballet. But when I, you know, discovered alcohol, man, it was Canadian Club in Schlitz beer. It was a summer night. It was football players. It was Jeanette Andrews, who was always one of my little heroes, because she was this, like, all the boys wanted to be by Jeanette Andrews. She was older than me and hung out with my older babysitter, who sat me down and shaved my legs one day. It was just like she sat on me and shaved my legs. And she only got one, you know. I was kind of a tomboy. I didn't know what was going on here. But Jeanette was sitting there on that 57 Chevy, and I'm hanging around with Mark and Doug Clark, and, you know, they let me hang around with them, and I guess this was pre-planned, and we put the radio stations all on the same radio station from Little Rock, Arkansas, this rock and roll, and they're blaring that. We're sitting on the hood of this car. I'm looking at Jeanette, and I'm going, "Whoa." That's what I thought. Whoa. She was like 38D there, sitting there in a mohair sweater. Whoa. It's like, I didn't mean it. I really didn't. Nobody liked the spelling of that name anyway, did we? There we go. So Jeanette Andrews is there, and I'm sitting next to her in my trainer bra that's not waking up, I can tell you that. And they passed that Canadian Club around, that Schlitz beer, and I moved Jeanette right off the hood of that car, because I turned into Marilyn Monroe legs hanging out there, and I noticed something was popping up, and I just felt empowered. I mean, I have been on a spiritual search from a little girl, because I knew there was something I was supposed to do. I had no idea it was supposed to, you know, go through the gamut of alcoholism right down, but, you know, that was preceding any sort of spiritual awakening I was going to get to have being with you. Thank you so much, because that's what I searched for my whole life. But alcohol gave me that spiritual experience. And I had sipped it before at these weddings and these funerals. I had, you know, had a little bit of it, but it wasn't like that. And I mean, I am in Iowa. It is a state-controlled liquor store. It's hard to get. My dad had a business, and I watered down his vodka, and I stole things like the peach brandy and the blackberry brandy and the Everclear because it had dust on the bottles. I was good at figuring it out. And there was a town drunk, and the town drunk would come, and my dad wouldn't be home, and the town drunk would borrow a bottle because my dad had a business, so he had booze that he would go to the state-controlled liquor store and have, so he always had a bar. And so I would tell my dad that John stopped by and he borrowed a couple of bottles. He got one, I got one. And, you know, there were things, I always made it happen. I was injecting an orange with a vodka to take to school. I mean, nobody told me that. Nobody figured, I took to it like a cat to milk. I was loving it. And it made me feel empowered. But pretty soon, by the time I'm ready to go off to college, I'm getting in trouble. I'm getting stopped by the highway patrol, and they know my dad. They all know my dad. So they would bring me home and wake him up, and my brother said he sat there one time and listened under the door. He said, oh, she's slurring her words and she's lying. She's lying. They know she's lying. He would like be so concerned for me, my younger brother. I didn't know it was in the car, Dad. You know, and so he would, you know, send me to bed and send the policeman home, and they began to worry about me a little bit. But I went off to college. It was the 60s. It wasn't just say no, it was just say thanks. And so we had a lot of fun and took a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of diet doctors. And I was recently going through some papers. My mother had moved, and I found some of my college, you know, projects, but there were stuck in there were these lists I had made of things I wanted to do, and they were always the same. I made no progress on what I thought I needed to do in life. Nothing was spiritual about it. It was all self-obsessed, self-absorbed. So my parents began to worry about me because I started to come home looking funny. I had my heart broken by my fiance, who I caught with his tutor telling her thank you very profusely one night as I'm driving by under a lit sorority door. I didn't even know that's where she lived, but that's my fiance. And I was like, I waited, I got very drunk. I waited for him to go to bed. I let myself in. I jumped on him, started punching him in the face. I was so mad at him. And he put me on the floor and got me away from him so I wouldn't hurt him. And I thought, no man's ever going to touch me like that again, ever, ever. And I shut down and I shut off. And my mother said to me when she found out, she said, aren't you going to cry? And I said, no. And I was allowed to cry. But alcohol is already starting to work on me. I'm already starting to get hard. And eventually, you know, I had relationships, but I was never that much in love again. I was never going to let myself get that much in love again. And so, my college years were a couple of years. I was a painter. I had a scholarship to Boulder, Colorado, but I went to the University of Iowa because of my fiance, which you know how that turned out. And I was already making decisions that, you know, were not based on any God-given talent or or just some sort of sense. My dad said to me once, you have no common sense, you know, after some episode or something. And he was right. You know, but my dad was starting to worry about me, and I had cut my wrists at some point, and I guess I was in pain, and they sent me to a psychiatrist who I wouldn't talk to, so they don't want to see you anymore, you know, just thank you for coming, but if you're not going to talk, you got to go, you know. You sit there for an hour with my arms folded, and I didn't want to talk to anybody, but I cut my wrists, and so my dad and the family priest, this was before I had that episode in the confessional, came down to help me at school and talk to me and take me to dinner and see if they could help. You know, it was the family priest, and my father thought he could help. And the priest and I drank whiskey sours all through dinner. We got roaring drunk. We ended up in the student union at some sort of an SDS rally or something. And father's sitting in there in the sit-in with me, and my father is standing by the door just going, oh my God, what do I do? My daughter's just corrupted the family priest here. And he was a lot of fun, but you know, pretty soon I'm drunk at Joe's place. I have a fake ID. Pretty soon I'm, you know, in the airliner. I'm not going to class. Pretty soon I'm taking my dad's charge card and I'm selling everything I can charge up so I have some money. Pretty soon, life as I was planned out to have it. I was at the White House when I was 16 years old as a young citizen of America. They picked 2 from every state. And the only reason I really entered that contest was to beat my older sister, who was a Mensa, and got everything perfect. And I did beat her. She didn't speak to me for about a year after that, but the 2 of us were in the running, you know, and I got to go and she didn't. And there I am, the young citizen of America, drunk in the White House, because I'd met the boys from Virginia that day, earlier, drinking beer up in some, I don't know, room there, some floor of some building over there that nobody was there. And we were just drinking, and then I had to go to tea with Lucy Bird, Linda Bird, and Lady Bird. And I find my notes. I am worried about, I better behave. I'm 16 and worried about myself. But I was your future. I was still looking good on the outside. I was your future. And now I'm 18, 19 years old, and I can't even go to art class anymore. And they closed a lot of universities that year early and took pass-fail, good, see ya. And I went to New York to visit, saw hair, ended up at the Playboy Club. You could drink at 18. I went, I'm moving here. And I moved to New York City, and I worked at an ad agency in the late 60s, and it was just like Mad Men, crazy. 2-hour martini lunches, drinking after work. If you had a hangover, you could just close your door. Nobody bothered you, really. And we were in charge of the media research, and they're still in business today. I don't know. We guess we didn't hurt them very much, but a lot of us were drunks and hungover, and I loved Harriet Krasnowitz was my boss. I don't remember who I went to high school with, but that boss took me to a martini lunch every day. And I remember her name. She saved me. I loved her. I just wanted to be like her when I grew up in the ad world, you know, but that was short-lived because I'm always looking over here because what I have isn't enough. You know, I don't really know who my people are. I walk Central Park at night and I meet you. And I bring you home and we have a hootenanny, or we throw the I Ching, or we do something, you know? You play the flute, great, come on, let's go, you know? And I saw Looking for Mr. Goodbar. You know, it's by seconds and inches that we're here. It's by seconds and inches that someone just didn't smother me with a pillow, people I drug home with me. We are the lucky ones. If you're new, I know you're probably somewhere else thinking about your favorite subject, but I hope you are. If you're new, you should be thinking about your life and this and what's this lady rattling on about. But, you know, what got you here is broken. Your brain, your mind, your thoughts, your ideas, your plans. You know, your plans. My plans were always just, you know, and the biggest thing I learned was to make my feet my friend. Love your feet. They'll get you where it's an action-oriented program. And it starts by showing up at meetings. It starts by going to your sponsor's house. It starts by going to coffee when your head is telling you 1,000 reasons why you shouldn't. If your feet take you there, you got a chance. So, okay, now you can go back thinking about whatever you want to, which is, I hope, yourself. So I started my chapter 3, and you know, that's the background of who you have up here. I had promise. I had talent. New York was 10 months of crazy insanity, and I ended up back in art school, and my father said he would give me another chance, and I couldn't paint anymore. It was gone. It had run out my sleeve. Maybe the bartender somewhere up in a Upper West Side bar, I lived Upper West Side, maybe would have said, you know what, if you keep on down this road, you got to pay now with that art talent. You got to slide it over here because I'm going to give you your drink, but it's time to pay up. I would have said, take it. I want my drink. You know, somewhere along the line, I couldn't paint anymore. I was depressed. I ended up wanting to be a cowgirl. My father and I literally put my bags on the step. He said, I'm not paying for your party anymore. And, you know, I'm defiant. I'm angry. He doesn't understand. He likes you better. You know, Nurse Sally, he loves her. And she got the horse in the ponytail. And, you know, and Nancy the Mensa is perfect, and then you have your son, so what am I? You know, and I goaded my dad, and I hurt my dad, and he tried to help me, and I let him see it too close, and I will push him back with my anger. Always did. My defiance and my anger. And I started to not need anybody, I thought. And Colorado, it didn't happen. You know, I went to Colorado to be a cowgirl, never got on a horse. I served a lot of the equestrians. I worked in a restaurant where we drank in the morning, and it was one of those I fired, you quit things, because Bob Dylan walked in the restaurant and ordered it. I mean, I'm near Aspen, could be, you know, ordered a chocolate milkshake to go. I made 2 chocolate milkshakes to go, got in the car with this guy and said, where are we going? And I'm not sure if it was Bob Dylan. You know, I'm just not. looked like him, sang like him. We came to California together. And literally in Laguna Beach, we said goodbye, and he went his way, and I went mine, and I'm in California. And, you know, I got my book in here, Be Here Now, by Baba Ram Dass. I'm a free spirit. I'm working at the Sawdust Festival, where that was the offshoot of the Masters, and it was a free festival, and it was the Rebel Festival, and they didn't charge, and that was the big thing. And I met this guy who bought me some wine, and he was a speed freak, and he painted pictures really, really fast. But he couldn't talk to people because he was too, he was all over the place. He couldn't talk to people, so he wanted me to sell the paintings. I said, okay, I'll sell the paintings for you. So he was like Oz behind the curtain, painting, and I'm sitting in front with his little paintings with my wine and, my little antique clothing on and peace and love, and selling his little paintings for him, and he was so happy. I lived at his house, he bought me wine, and that's all I wanted. He just bought me wine. And that's all I needed. But eventually I said, well, this has been fun, but I met these people at a commune, and I landed at a commune, and they saw that I was not a kind of drinker they wanted to be around. My drinking stood out, and they just couldn't understand why I wasn't mellow, and they were all boring and passed out all the time. And so they took me and the other hyper dog out in the freeway in Barstow and said bye. And I drank their bong wine one night because I had nothing to drink, and they got really mad at me. And it was like, I just look at these people and go, come on, what's wrong with you? And I have a picture. I don't know how I ended up with this picture that we all took with one of those cameras. And everybody and the cats are hanging over shoulders because the cats are mellow and the dogs are mellow. And then right in the front are me and that hyper dog, ready to party, ready to have fun. And they're all like half-masked, and just smoking that stuff. And my drinking stood out. But that was the year I turned 21, and I had a bad gallbladder, I had pancreatitis, I ended up back at home with Mom and Dad. My dog gets killed, I put her in the trunk of the car. It's January. It's frozen. My dog's frozen in the trunk of the car, dead and frozen. And my mother caught me one night sitting in the trunk with that dead dog, and my poor mother was like, oh my God, we're gonna bury that dog. I don't care if the earth is frozen, we're burying that dog. And I would just sit in there and talk to my dead dog because I was brokenhearted. I had no friends, I had no plan. I was sick. I was living at home again. My mother said, you can stay here, but please don't get in your father's way because you break his heart. And there was so much tension between me and Dad. If we were even sitting in the same room, you could just feel it. My dad loved me. My dad didn't understand alcoholism. My dad didn't know what was happening. He just saw his daughter fade away and be angry about it. And my dad just would set his jaw and walk away. He didn't even engage in conversation with me because that's how I did it. My grandmother sat me at the card table with the children on the porch. I didn't even get to sit with the big table at Thanksgiving anymore. And I knew it was over with me and the family. So you drink differently when it's over. You drink differently. And, I ended up in another situation, organic commune in northern Wisconsin, where I'm there, where they have cheese. And they were organic, and they ate organic, and we ground our own wheat berries organic, and everything was organic. And Mother Earth News would come, oh, Mother Earth News is here, and it's like, it was so much work. I had no idea. I just went there to have, maybe something new in my life. And, these people, we planted organic stuff, and it was, Maui seed, and it was pretty nice. And they went, made some money, and they went off to do primal therapy and spend $2,000 a piece. And I said, see ya, but my drinking, they didn't want to hang with me when I would get drunk. They said, why can't you just smoke this? It's like, because it makes me thirsty, I want to drink, and I would drink my tequila or my vodka or my Jack Daniels, and they would all we just had this wonderful little hootenanny where they're all happy and drinking their little organic wine and smoking all organic stuff, and I'm playing the spoons, ready to throw the spoons through the window, and until I had some wine or something to drink, and me and the dog and cat were, having a good time. And they just looked at me like, oh my God, why do you have to act like this? And they were right. I don't know why I had to act like this, but they left, and they left me with the the things we were growing, and I got drunk and screamed at the sheep for about 2 days. I had my primal. It was great. All the little organic sheep were little hopping around, and I harvested my crop, and I was going to have a big deal and leave town and make this money, and I went into town and forgot the stuff and joined the carnival because it was there. And so this gets, I'm a free spirit. I'm not hurting anyone but myself. Why are you crying, Mom? I'm not hurting anyone but me. Leave me alone. And that's such a lie. That's such a lie. She just broke her heart when she found I was with the carnival. You're what? You're where? Arkansas? You're supposed to be in Wisconsin marrying this guy Phil with this farm. And my mother had to go up. It was like a 4-hour trip to go up there and get her furniture that I had, some of them antiques that I had moved into this farmhouse. Take care of the cat that had been kicked by the horse. The horse was out. She had to take care of these things. She had to make a couple of trips. I'm not hurting anyone but me. Leave me alone. Just clean up my mess after me. My mom and I were always so tight, always tight. And now I can't even call home and talk to her. Who cares? Who needs them? I'm with the carnival. I'm with the show. And I had a little rinky-dink. It was a shooting gallery. Then I had hung my flash, my teddy bears, and learned to speak Arnie because they wouldn't show me or tell me. I had to figure it out. I know that stealing was part of the deal, so we all stole. And I'm drinking Jack Daniels mostly, or tequila, and I'm mean. And my dog, that had another dog, didn't hear about the last dog, and this dog was biting people, nipping their ankles, and laying down by my little joint. And people would come, and their kids would be excited. They would want to shoot and knock things down and win a teddy bear, right? And some nights I'm just mean. I just don't care anymore. And they would say, oh yeah, and they start cheering, and I would just flip it back up with my finger. I'd say, no, you didn't. Yes, I did. I said, no, you didn't. Cry baby. No, you didn't. Mean person. Awful. I was awful to these children. Little did I know I get to come to AA and make amends, right? I had no idea any of this was coming down the pike for me. And so I end up I made the owner of the show mad. I maced somebody and started a big fight. We got closed down. And 2 stops later, somebody pointed the finger, and I opened the door at 6 a.m. of this cheap motel. And of course I shouldn't open the door at 6 a.m. It's no good, right? And it was Franklinton Parish Finest, and up against the wall, and the shotgun in my belly, and they finally gave me a sheet. And with me was my new man of the hour, and he had a pet skunk. So everybody was up against the wall, the dog, the skunk, the guy, it was just, and they didn't know what they had on their hands, but they found enough of what we had for sales and possession, and the sales made it a felony in that parish. Everything's parish by parish in Louisiana. And I couldn't believe the carnival didn't come back and get me. I couldn't believe it. I'm in there going, they're coming back. I know, day 2, they're coming back. I know someone's going to post my bail. Bye-bye. And I started to have DTs. I'm 2-3 days without alcohol. I'm 4 days without alcohol. I find a piece of a Coke bottle, they're coming to get me. So I'm cutting myself and making myself bleed and putting blood around my bunk so they can't get me. And they literally did come at night, but they left me alone because I was the crazy alcoholic or whatever I was, the crazy one. Leave her alone, she's crazy. And the girl that was my bunkmate, my cellmate, got pregnant while she was there with me. And I know they're coming back. I can't believe they didn't Miranda me. They did not read me my rights. So I am screaming now this day, all day long, until they finally handed me my rights and told me to shut up. Somebody typed them up. And here they are, shut up, I couldn't believe I was in this situation. And I'm getting crazier and crazier. And they cuffed me one day, they took me out, and I thought I was free, but they put me in the car and they take me somewhere and they throw me in this room, and it's a lawyer and the bail bondsman and my father. And if there's one day I have that I never want to forget how I felt when I opened my eyes in that situation, it's that day. If I think I'm not hurting anyone but me, leave me alone. If I think my mother doesn't sleep at night because I'm with you in Alcoholics Anonymous, absolutely. I can't believe that my father had heard about this and come. And my dad and I talked about that when I was 20 years sober. My sponsor wouldn't let me talk about that day until I was 20 years sober. Don't bring it up. I'd made a lot of amends, and he said, all I said was, I'm not guilty, and it's not my fault. I was becoming the perfect victim. I'm not guilty. You want to know why it's not my fault? I got a list. But he said, that's all you said. You said nothing else all day long. The bail bondsman took my dad's money. The lawyer took my dad's money. I ended up back in jail. And my dad went home, and he thought I was going to get out, and I didn't. And when they finally kicked me loose, I found the French Quarter, and I made my address Bourbon Street. I am not playing anymore. I'm not pretending to have a life, even if it is a carny worker. I'm not even pretending anymore. My address is Bourbon Street, and that's where I live, and that's where I drink, and that's where it's 24/7 on, and that's where I'm getting well and I'm getting sick, and I'm getting well and I'm getting sick. But I am in the game of dark, deep alcoholism. We drank at places where there wasn't a crack of light that didn't show up. One place was called The Dungeon, and it really was. And then I lived above a biker bar called The Mousetrap. And I was dancing for Chris Owens on Bourbon Street, and we wore little outfits. I didn't wear pasties and all that. We had little outfits, and I had a platinum blonde wig, and I would walk down Bourbon Street with this pet skunk, because me and this guy are in this together now. We don't like each other at all, but nobody's leaving. Who you leave first? No, you leave first, And he was a heroin addict, and he was always face down going to left party, and I didn't get that at all, because I didn't get it, and he got his leg broken on a tugboat. He had a tugboat job, and I'm goading him with a knife, and he's hopping at me with his broken leg, and we're in front of the biker bar, and they think it's so funny, and because we lived upstairs, and the skunk is free, and I found my dog again, and it's just craziness. And then we get a snake, and then one night, it was horrific. It really was, looking back on it. We would try to have people over to eat or something, and then everybody drink, and nobody ate. Nobody ever ate. I don't know what we ate, but once in a while, I guess I'd come to with my face in something, but I remember those red beans and rice that we were making. It's been on the stove for 2 days, right? And you lift it up and it's crawling, garbage. Just take it to the garbage. I didn't even try to stick it in the shower and clean it, because I did those a lot of times. Mush all that stuff down the drain, I lived like an animal. And I had my platinum blonde wig on, and my black eye covered by blue glitter, and my mother and father at the door. They were in Texas, and they thought they'd come over and see if their daughter was okay, because they hadn't heard from me. They knew I was somewhere down there, and they found me. And my mother came in, and she cried, and my dad wouldn't come in, and he set his jaw. I saw him outside, and the snake was put in my face by my boyfriend. And they went home that day, and there was a moment. I'm sitting down at the Mousetrap having my rock glass full of Jose Cuervo to the top, nice and neat, big rock glass, not the little one. No salt, no lime. And I'm shoving that down, and there is no relief. It is not telling me who cares. I'm the black sheep. Who cares? It did not let that little click go off. And I knew exactly where I was and what was happening. And my mom and dad were driving away, maybe forever. And I wanted to go run after the car and just go, let me come home. I'm so tired. Let me just wrap up in a blanket and lay in the back seat. I won't make a peep all the way home. Can't we start over? I knew that it wouldn't change. I didn't know alcoholism. Nobody knew alcoholism. And finally that guy left, which everybody was all happy he finally left, and because they were wondering what I was doing with all my alcoholic friends, were judging me. And I'm tending bar, and I end up finding this guy in St. Louis. I'm in the bar one night thinking, he left me. We didn't even have a discussion on this. And everybody was so happy he was gone. But me and the drag queens were sitting around at a bar one night, and they just wanted my clothes because I was leaving town fast, and they liked my clothes, so they wanted some of my clothes. And so they were cleaning out my closet, and I'm packing fast and driving up to St. Louis where his parole board found him, right? Because I guess he was, MIA or something, because, I met him at the carnival. That's where you meet, upstanding gentlemen. And I found him after being in town for a few days. And this is just typical of how I thought. And he got off his Harley, he took off his helmet, and he crashed the window and pulled me through by my hair as a police car pulled up, or it would have gotten messier. And he spit in my face. He said, if I ever see you again, I will kill you. And so that's when I let go of the relationship. Because I am loyal to a fault. If we're not done, we're not done. And it was, I had left town. I came back to New Orleans without him, thank God. And I'm a convicted felon now. My family is mortified. I had a lot of crazy things happen down there, and my alcoholism took me to a point where I am running from Mardi Gras because my friend had been shot and killed outside my door. I fired from Decatur Street Bar where it's stinky and messy and gross, and I had a bad attitude, and they asked me to leave. I'm unemployable. I am in New York City. I am running to California on my way to Hawaii. I land in Barney's Beanery, and I'm with a Scottish guy who's dead from alcoholism now, who had gotten some money from a publishing house, and we drank it up. They left me in Maryland. They picked me up in New York. They left me in Maryland on my suitcase in the snow because I was such a bad alcoholic. These are two people that are, one, I don't know where he is, the other one's dead from alcoholism, and they were like not wanting to hang out with me. And I said, if we wouldn't have bought that Winter's Cup vodka from Thrifty, for God's sake, buy the good stuff. I mean, that's what I said to them, and they put me out in the snow, and then they felt back and came back and got me, and we ended up in California. I was trying to go to Hawaii, and I couldn't do it. I was tired. I was 175 pounds, a bloated, toxic, alcoholic mess. My gallbladder had been removed. I had pancreatitis attacks. I had a dashiki that I wore a lot because, you know, I didn't bathe. Water hurt. And I didn't have any place to live, and I managed to get my booze. And I remember this girl named Chris running was really nice to me. She let me sleep at her place, and she was moving out and getting married, and so I would come to, and there'd be more furniture gone, and I didn't know quite where I was. And she had a book called Came to Believe. And I remember one night crawling across the floor and seeing this book with the little, it was back when they had the little seedling through the snow. And kind of looked at that book, and you know, it didn't mean much to me, but I'd have to go down to the liquor store, which was blocks away before they closed, and they were out there. I was really getting odd. And I finally one day in sobriety drove by where I was and where that liquor store was, and it was 2 houses down. It was horrific for me. I was hiding on bushes to try to get to this liquor store because they were after me, whoever they were. And I was unemployable, as I said, and I'm sitting in the bar one night, and that girl, Chris Running, who was going to be my Eskimo into AA, had the big book and was drunk as a skunk, and the bartender took away her keys. And I thought, Alcoholics Anonymous, how embarrassing. I didn't even know what it was, but it was embarrassing. But she had to go have her court card signed, or some card, and she was drunk. And so the bartender took away her car keys, called her a taxi, and all of us sitting at the bar went, good for you, Chris, go to A&A. You know, we gave her a toast as she went out the door. And that was in April of 1975. I was going to try to make another run in New Orleans. I had alcoholic stuttering. Nobody would hire me back. I tried to go to Hawaii. I can't get to Hawaii. I'm in Barney's Beanery again. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no money. I have nothing going on. And somebody said, let's go to Palm Springs and party, so I went. And I ran into some people that weren't very nice to me and broke my jaw in 3 places and broke my nose and kind of threw me around and, you know, out of a car, and I was a big mess. And I was laying there July 27th, my face down in the sand, bleeding from my face, concussion, no clothes on, laying in this ditch. And I thought, let it be over. And I heard a voice. I had a moment of awareness. I had an awakening. Deep down inside me, it said, get up, I want to live. And I paid attention to that voice, because I guess I got up and passed out in a lawn chair by a pool where a gardener found me and police came. I don't remember any of it. I remember coming to on a gurney in the emergency room in Palm Springs Hospital. And the police were there because it was a smaller town then in '75, and it wasn't going to happen, and they were really concerned about what happened to me. And so I'm trying to write my ID and write all that stuff because I can't talk, and I'm writing, and I saw a word, and if my broken face could have smiled, it would have, because it said victim. Oh, finally. That's what I was shooting for, victim. And I was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and some guy that felt sorry for me from Barney's Beanery drove all the way down there, said, you know you have no place to go. I know you have to go to court. They caught these guys. And I had this wired up face. I couldn't eat, so I was drinking. I had a tooth kicked out, so I had a place to put the straw to stick it in the cheap wine to suck on it. And that's where I was sitting on August 20th, 1975, at his table above the liquor store where he lived when he said to me, "You have to leave, you're depressing me." I had nowhere to go. And the beauty about that day of grace was that I had no plans. I had no ideas. I had nothing that said Phoenix, Arizona, or wherever. It was call your mother, call your mother. And so this person who can't talk, my first 3 months in AA, I couldn't talk. I was wired up. People were so happy because I had to learn to listen, But I called my mother with this broken jaw, and she said to me, "Sharon, I can't help you anymore. Go to the Salvation Army. I can't send you any money." And my mother didn't sleep for 2 nights until she found out where I was and what had happened, because she had gotten a phone call from somebody in the hospital and didn't tell her where I was. So my mother didn't sleep at night. And then 14, 15 days later, she said she couldn't help me. I should go to the Salvation Army. And I looked down, and there was a phone number there. And guess whose phone number? It was that girl, Chris Running, the one in the bar that had to go to A&A. But she was dating the guy that I was staying with. And I called her because she was always nice to me, and I needed a place to stay. And Chris wasn't sober that day, so what she said to me was, "I can't help you." She knew she couldn't have a 12-step call on me that day, but Suzanne can. And I called a stranger, which is another moment of grace, because I don't call and ask for help. I'll figure it out on my own. I don't need you. And I called this one, Suzanne, who knew exactly where I was, who didn't really care that she couldn't understand me. She knew the liquor store where I was. And she said, "Put your drink and put your joint down." I thought, how does she know I have both? It was like she read my mail and got my attention, and she told me exactly where to sit and sent 2 beautiful girls over to get me. Beautiful, California smiles, get out of this. I don't know where we're going. I just know I'm there with my backpack with my book, Be Here Now, some clothes and a paper bag, and my broken face and my dirty hair and my broken Huarache shoes and my ripped jeans and my bleach-stained turquoise T-shirt. And there I'm sitting on the steps, and they pull up, and there's all teeth and gleam and brightness and things that I couldn't stand. I hated the light. And I thought, I'm not going anywhere with them. Whoever they are, I don't like them. I'm making a judgment call here. And I was so tired, they picked me up and put me in the back of this car. And it was a Volkswagen where I couldn't get out, could not get out. And those women told me parts of their story all the way to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't know where we were going. I had no idea where we were going. God just really opened up and put down a breadcrumb, and I'd pick it up, and put down another breadcrumb, and I'd pick it up. And they told me parts of their story, and I didn't hear a thing. I just kept thinking, why don't they ask me about me? Nobody said, "Oh my God, look at you, what happened?" Nobody said that at the meetings. I was waiting for someone to go, "What happened to you?" They said, "Oh, look, she looks tired, maybe she'll make it. Put your backpack down and stay with us. You look like you could use a little rest." That's what they said, things like that to me. "Oh, you can't talk good, now you can learn to listen. Ha, ha, ha." And I just like, so we go to this church, and I thought, oh, here we go. Here we go. I'm going to have to, take the potential test and spiritually tell them why I'm just, I can't do this, and I'm out of here. But the man at the door wasn't the minister. He was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, dressed in a suit and a tie. He was the secretary who greeted the people, and he said, "Welcome." Welcome. Nobody said welcome to me. And I end up at this meeting where I don't know where I am. And then the man at the podium said, he always waited for the spaceship to land and say, "You can come home now, Bill." And I thought, that was that little kindling thrown on the ember of life I brought to you. Ember of life, and you threw the kindling on with that perfect speaker for me, because I heard nothing but that. Because I thought, these are my spaceship people. All right, I'm with my spaceship people. And that little ember fired up, and I gave some guy a quarter for the big book because he wouldn't be quiet. I didn't know Alcoholics Anonymous, so I gave him a quarter, and he was happy about payment terms. It was just all too much, and they moved me out of that liquor store. I started sleeping on floors. They said, "We'll pick you up tomorrow, don't drink and use." And then I started staying with AA people on floors, and they had it all scheduled out, a week at a time here and a week at a time there, and I didn't know that until later on. I was able to do it a week at a time here for somebody and a week at a time there. I just thought they were asking me to leave because I was such a mope. I just thought I'd go in the bathroom and sob and then come out. I wouldn't let you see me cry. And then pick up my backpack and my big book and my paper bag. I had a big book now. And go to somebody else's house where I was wanted. That's the way I felt. I didn't say any of this to anybody. They finally gave me a job doing cups and ashtrays. They would put them all in the same sink, this big sink in this kitchen. And I was like, I couldn't figure out why they would put the ashtrays in with the cups. And finally somebody just went by me and just kind of said in my ear, "Wash." Okay, wash. I was so out of it when I came to you. I'm so grateful that you were glad. You were glad to have me be totally out of it when I came to you. And I didn't realize, but in that moment of grace, that day, August 20th, I woke up a drinker and I went to bed a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that is my sobriety date. And I am so amazed by that we get to have a day that means having another life given to us. It's been said all weekend about the gift. That a gift has been given. If you're here, the gift has been given. Already, it's been given. And it's not going to be about you. I know it's going to take a long time to learn that. If you know, it's like, what? Not about me? It's all about me. It was all about me for a long time. But the gift has been given. And somehow I got this a few years ago in my brain and in my heart, that each one of us have one life to save. The gift has been given so that we can save one life that only will listen to you. That whatever that one person is that's going to only listen to you and save that life, behind that life that you're going to save is a mother and a father and siblings and children and people whose lives and hearts will be rejoicing, not broken. Because you've been given the gift to save a life. And I think that's why we're here, is to give a life because our life has been saved. So I hope you find that life. I hope you stay with the gift, to not kill the life that's going to come to you and break more hearts for that person. And there are people that love them. And I don't know, it's just, it's what I really feel. And I know that my life in Alcoholics Anonymous has been so different. That little innocent girl has come back into my life. The innocence came back after I started, probably after my amends were being made. I started to have moments of innocence in my life, moments of God's kids. I never thought that would come back into my life. I didn't realize that getting a sponsor and following somebody who had been down the road and not being defiant anymore, at least publicly defiant. I would sometimes hold the phone out to hear, or I would eat an apple as I'm talking to her on the phone, crunching as she's trying to give me direction. And be careful what you do to sponsor, because it comes back. I sponsor a girl who used to eat carrots on the phone at me, and I said, "Are you eating an apple?" She said, "No, a carrot." And I just love her. I've been with her. She's been with me for like 32 years. I love working with the defiant ones. The very first girl I sponsored had stabbed her husband. And I just thought, oh, why me? I was like a year and a half sober, and I get this woman who stabbed her husband. And she wouldn't call. And I said, "You've got to call me." And I kept, I would always look at her. I didn't want to turn my back on her. And so she would call me after the coffee shop at midnight, and I would lean over and wake up and answer the phone. And she'd say, "I'm okay, I'm just going home. I wanted to check in," because she couldn't really talk. But she would check in at midnight. And I'd say, good, okay, call me tomorrow, see you at the meeting. And I had to give her another direction once. I was turning around the cupboard to get the coffee cups out of the cupboard, and I thought, oh my God, my back, here it comes, here it comes. And I love Diane. She doesn't live by me anymore, but she's still sober, and we talk a lot. I love Diane. And I just, I want us all to go, rah, really loud at that music or something. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rah! We're having fun in here, too. It's bugging me over there. They were doing breathalyzers walking in the door. We could all pass. Isn't that great? Absolutely. So I had to make a lot of amends, and I did my first, fourth, and fifth step with Janet. I'm not going to walk you through all the steps. But Janet and I had 5 years with Janet, 5 years with Jenny, and 27 years with Clancy. Those have been my sponsors. And I've always been in the middle of the Pacific Group. I've always been in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. As I get older in sobriety, I inch a little bit more towards the middle. I don't inch a little bit back. I inch a little. I give just a little bit more so I can get a little bit closer to the middle. And I've learned that by some of the best, and most of the people that love me and gave me those moments are in the big meeting in the sky. It's just, a guy named Chuck Nesbitt was such a gentleman in our group, and he always dressed dapper, and he sponsored a lot of people, and he saw me one night keeping score. I had a list. Somebody gave me money, somebody let me sleep on their couch, somebody gave me rides. I had little, hash marks by all of this and things that had happened. And he saw that list, and he didn't wait for this broken-jawed girl to talk. He just said, put that away. He said, one day you're going to have a license, registration, all in the same name, you just, all of it, the car insurance, everything. And I thought, how does he know that, first of all? And he said, we're going to start a job, and somebody's going to be able, you're going to be able to take your clothes in a cleaner bag and give them to him after the meeting. Because his wife had done that with me. I wondered how he knew about that. Do it after the meeting so you don't embarrass them. You're going to have a couch where someone can sleep on. You can give rides. You can stick a 20 in a purse when someone goes to the bathroom because you know they need it. Pass it on, Sharon. Don't pass back. Pass it on. And he gave me some dignity back. He gave me some dignity back. People were kind to me. A man named Hank Johnson, we were laughing about Hank Johnson today. I finally got that car. It had broken seat, and it was a Malibu. It was primer gray. It was great. It had no pipes. It was like, made a lot of noise. And my sponsor saw me low riding up to the meeting, and she said, do you have car insurance? What? Car insurance? What? She said, you're not driving until you get car insurance. So here's Hank Johnson. They introduced this guy to me. God, it's like, a lot of distractions tonight. It's like I'm kind of potentially ADD, so it's not, coffee and soda and things falling and music and life, our life and sobriety. And for God's sakes, we all died to get here practically, It's have a little respect, It's like, anyway. Hank showed up at my little $24 a week room with an insurance policy and a pen, and I gave him my waitress tips, and he said, welcome to being a citizen, and I got that car insurance, and I couldn't vote because I was a felon, and couldn't tell my parents. We never talked about it, and I had to go home and make amends, and oh my God, my dad and I couldn't even look at each other, and he just said, I always wanted you to be happy. And so I had to be happy when I talked to my dad. And he came down and walked me down the aisle and met all of you and bought the big book and loved you guys, thought you were funny. And somebody snapped a picture at my wedding, and we were eye to eye. I have that picture. We were eye to eye. First time that I can remember. And then Jenny became my sponsor, and I'm married to this AA guy, and we're having a great time. My jobs are getting better. Things are working out. And I called Jenny one night to tell her he was being mean to me, and she said, it's time to make financial amends to your dad. You have a better job. I was like, I didn't discuss all this with her. I don't know how she knew that, and I'm trying to talk about something different. And so I said, okay, because I don't tell her all that rhetoric because she doesn't want to hear it. And so she said, call your dad and ask him how much money you owe him. So I called him, and I'm thinking he's going to have to figure it out and think about it and remember all the things I didn't get everybody else got, and, Yeah, and add up my tally over here, which is bigger than what everybody else got. But he was ready for me. He had run a calculator tape, and he had put it on page 78 because he had read the big book. He bought it when he was out at my wedding. And he circled it in red, my mother said. It was circled in red. And so when he gave me the total, I was aghast. It was high. It was really high. So I called Jenny, and she laughed. We laughed. And I called him back. In 2 days, he accepted my payment terms. And then I called her back. I said, we're on. He accepted. She said, good. Don't be late. You might be the only example of Bill and Bob. Bill and Bob got together on Mother's Day. Whew, tomorrow, I hope we all wake up with a little bit of gratitude that potted doctor on Mother's Day decided to go meet with that New York stockbroker at the gatehouse. And they stayed for hours and hours, and one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. We're born. I hope we all wake up in the morning and think of that, because when Bill and Bob are an example of my life, where I got to be an example, I want them to be proud of me, because look what they've done. Millions of us. Our mothers sleep at night. Our children aren't, they're fed. They're put in bed. People are happy to see us. We bring joy into the world. We show up at time. We punch in on time. We show up, we give where we go. The world's a better place because these two people were divinely inspired somehow to get together. And so my dad, I sent him on time because I'm an example to Bill and Bob, that check. And she said she wanted me to put a note about my life. So I did that because she asked me to. And so my dad got a check and a note, a check and a letter, a check and a card with that on-time payment to him. And for about 5 years, about 2 months short of 5 years, he got that. And then he picked up the phone and called me and said, Merry Christmas, I don't want your money anymore, but don't stop sending me your notes. And my dad and I got, the innocence came back. You know, we could do hardware store together. I could weed a patch with him. I could go pick strawberries. I could do any, you know, we were good. And at 10 years of sobriety, my marriage fell apart. My sponsor smoked pot in Paris, and I was without a sponsor. And I ended up at the Clancy's door, and I'm glad that he was my sponsor because he helped me through that year because he was louder than my head. He told me I walked through it with dignity and grace so I could be an example to others, not because of anything for me, just to be an example. And I was able to do that. And my mother and father got to come out and help me. They brought me a car. They wanted to do it, and the slate was clear. So my dad got to be my dad, and my mom got to be my mom. Those amends were not for me to walk down the sunny side of the street. They were for my dad and my mom to help their daughter in trouble when I was 10 years sober, because the slate was clean, and he was able to bring me a car. They were able to buy me a bed. They were able to help me out. It was for them to be mom and dad. I had given them the freedom to be mom and dad again. And that's what we do. We rub out the record, and we have a new life, and we can bring that to the people that love us. I just wanted to, I'm sorry, that music is just really distracting me. I'm trying really hard up here, guys. You know, my dad was killed in 99. It was over in a second, and I'm so glad that his grandson got to know him and my mom. And my mom lives in Wisconsin now, and she's doing great. They just sent me a picture of her with all the flowers that we sent her, and she's just the sweetest thing, and she sleeps at night because of Alcoholics Anonymous. And you know, I got better jobs, and I got to go to New Orleans and make amends, and I got to sponsor Sister Sheila, who has who helped me make amends to the Catholic Church, and who has a carnival every year at this school that my son ended up going to. And guess who worked the carnival for 8 years? Yay, you know. Guess who bought tickets for all these little boys to win teddy bears? Me. And, you know, it was great. It was right there in front of me to do. And God gave me, the opportunity. It was on my list. And so I've made a lot of amends. And these women in New Orleans, a couple of them are sober. And the three of us are going to get together in Boston in June. And Denny went back to law school, and she sent me my pardon once in the mail when I was about 15 years sober, for fun and for free. She put me in on some sort of a general pardon of first-time offenders, and I got my pardon from the state of Louisiana for fun and for free. So many miracles like that, so many just wonderful beautiful how we give to each other, what we do for each other. I mean, when my dad was killed and I couldn't get there until the next day, the AA women were at my mother's house. I've been in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous and doing my absolute very best when I don't want to. I have smart feet, and those feet get me out of bed, and you know, I have a dog. And if you don't believe in God, get a dog, because that's God spelled backwards. And you know, a dog is always happy to see its owner if you're treating it good. Yay, you're home. I'm so glad you're home. Hooray. And that's God. When we come home to God, God is so happy to see us. He's just overjoyed to see us. And when I look at my dog, I just know how much my God loves me. I have become God's kid. I don't know when that happened, but it happened. It was a transformation that was slow. I've been transformed by the happiness of being sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, it says the central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that God has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. Miraculous. We get that. This is here for us. And I want to end with my man, Casey, because, and I was with him for 24 years, and it's been almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years, June 3rd, that he passed away sober of malignant melanoma, and he was the love of my life, the love of my life. And he would have had fun out here on this golf course with that floating thing, because he was a big golfer, and he's had courage and dignity, and Larry knew him, and Johnny was his sponsor, and I got to tell you, Johnny got up and crawled in bed with that man, with my husband, on the next to last day of his life, and laid there and held him. That's what we do for each other. That's what we do for each other. And then they laughed because Johnny said, one thing bothers me, Casey. When I get up there to the big meeting in Sky, you'll be an old timer. I'll be a newcomer. I'll have to get you coffee. You know? We always got to humor it up a little bit. You know we do, because, I mean, laughter has just been my healing. And, you know, I'm a little girl from Iowa who got in a car with her mom and dad. It was my sister's wedding, and they picked me up at the airport, and my sister's in the car with her husband-to-be. My dad's in the front seat with the Mensa. My brother's in the car talking to his, you know, new Alaskan brother-in-law who's a fisherman, and they're talking fishing, and I'm sitting in the middle of this car, and I am sober a while, and I am sobbing because I realize I don't fit in. And I'm thinking, my dad looked at me and stopped the van and said, oh my God, are you all right? And I had them all there so I could be the victim again. And I had to hang up my victim cloak that day. And I heard a voice that said, get out of the car, because I had done my 11th step in Chicago airport that morning. It was a night flight, and I had that morning, and I sat there and had my 11th. Thank God, God said, get out of the car, get out of the van. And I stood there by this Iowa cornfield, and I looked at it, how beautiful it was, and what was growing, and the colors around it, and the light, and the sun, and just that it was really beautiful. It's okay being from Iowa. It's okay being in this family. You're not the center of attention all the time. They love you, just like you are. And so I kind of made peace with being from Iowa, and as I turned around, because they all went back to their conversations, you know, whatever Sharon's having, let her have it, you know, give her some water, she'll be all right, you know. As I turned to get back in the van, I saw the cornfield had been planned. And it was all in rows, and it was all beautiful, and it was all thought out, and I'm sure they had to rotate the field to make it grow like that year. And I just said, you know what, Sharon's got a plan for you. God's already got your back. He's got a plan. You have your little designs and plans. God has a bigger perspective, and he loves you so much. Just stay on the road. It's going to be all right. And it was all right. And I got in the van, and I got to be a part of the family, and I got to hang up my victim cloak, and you know, it's itchy and gray and black, and I put it on every once in a while just to feel it, and it's like, I don't want to be there. And so I'm not a victim or a widow or go through any of that. I am so grateful I had a time with my soulmate type. We had 24 years together. I'm grateful. And he is in my heart, and my heart is bigger than ever because of knowing that man. My heart is broken open right now. And it's pretty vulnerable, but it's okay. You know, I go out in the world and smile at people at my lunch hour just to make it a better day. And, you know, Blake said, I love Blake. He's confusing and very mystical and very heavy, but I really like him. And, you know, he's a poet and he's a thinker. And, You know, we like people like that. You know, and Blake said, you know, when you put me on the pyre of life, because he was sitting there watching all the burning pyres of all these people that had had a life, that they burned them all night, and they put them all, they have these times that they can put their people in these boats and light them on fire. And he was watching this one night with all these lives going up in flames, and he said, just, wow, when you put me on the pyre of life, may I be all used up. And I got that. May I be all used up. My life is not about me. My life is just trying to do my very best as God's kid today. Open my eyes, see what needs to be done. I don't get to judge who gets it. I just have to open my eyes and do that. And I'm going to end with this little thing that my son wrote me after we had had some hard times. And when Casey came in his life, he taught him a lot of stuff. My son is very successful in his business, and he works very hard. And he's a good guy, and he's not an alcoholic. I don't know where he came from. He said to me, God, Mom, you wasted time drinking, didn't you? I just thought, ouch, yeah, I did. You're right. But my husband's very smart, and he helped him with a lot of his college and things that he had to do for his career. And so, you know, he had his little rebellious times with me, but then we kind of came back together, and I let him be who he was, and I let this man in his life to be a father. And, you know, Casey and I were only married 5 of that 24 years, but I was so happy I was his wife when he passed away. So happy. But he wrote this. And this is what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, we're going to have people that are going to love us just for being a sober mom. We're going to go home, those of us that have recovery, we're going to love somebody. If we don't have a mom, we're going to love somebody tomorrow, because that's just what it is. And if you're not a mom, you're going to love somebody too. I know you are. That's what we need to do every day. The world needs love. It is all about the love. Anyway, the son wrote me this one Mother's Day. He said, Mother, these past few years have been wonderful. We've been communicating better than ever, and you've really helped me become what I need to be to survive in this world. Your guidance and intuition has come unmatched by any other in my life. Learning from you has brought me closer. My wish is that throughout the years, our bond can tighten and our love can strengthen to even greater spaces. I hope I have made you proud so far, and I will continue to by working hard and succeeding in my goals. I love you, Mother. Happy Mother's Day. And I would have missed it. I would have missed being a mom. I would have missed being a sponsor. I would have missed being a baby. I would have missed being a child of God. And, you know, I used to think freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. I had nothing left to lose when I came to you in Alcoholics Anonymous. You took this broken ember of life, and you made a life. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So, pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.